The washing machines in the basement had a way of making time feel thicker. Not slower, just heavier. Like it sat on your shoulders while you waited for socks to finish being someone else's problem. I came down every Tuesday night with the same canvas bag and the same half plan to text someone while I waited. I never did. I'd prop my phone against the detergent bottle, scroll a little, then lock it and slide it back into my pocket as if it had embarrassed me first. That's how she found me the first time, sitting on the plastic chair, staring at nothing, folding a napkin I didn't need because there wasn't food down there. Just habit. Machine 3 eats quarters, she said from the doorway. I looked up too fast. She was holding a small metal tray with loose change and a pen balanced on top, like she'd interrupted herself mid-thought. Her hair was pulled back in a way that suggested it had been down earlier. Not styled. Just decided. Sorry, I said, even though I hadn't done anything yet. She smiled. Not at me exactly. More like in my direction. No need. I just didn't want you to think it was personal. I nodded like I understood machines and their grudges. She was my landlady. I knew that. We'd met upstairs weeks before when I signed the lease. She'd shown me where the fuse box was, apologized twice for the creak in the stairs, and said she hoped the noise wouldn't bother me. I'd said it was fine. It wasn't a lie. I liked knowing someone was there. Down here, in the basement, she felt different. Closer to my height. The light was bad. It made everyone honest. She watched me feed the machine, flicked her eyes to my hands. I noticed because I always notice where people look when they're not trying to be obvious. I folded the napkin again. Smaller. You always come down this late, she asked. Yeah. Less crowded. She nodded. Smart. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just unclaimed. The dryer thumped somewhere behind us, steady as a heart that didn't need attention. She leaned against the counter, crossed one ankle over the other. If it jams, just knock upstairs. I'm usually awake. Usually? She shrugged. Sometimes I fall asleep on the couch. I pictured it without meaning to. The upstairs I'd never seen. A lamp left on. A quiet TV. She pushed the tray into my hands. Our fingers didn't touch, but the space between them felt like it had been measured. After that, it became a routine. Tuesdays. Sometimes Thursdays. She'd appear with mail or laundry of her own. We talked about small things. The weather in a way that wasn't about the weather. The old radiator that hissed like it was thinking too hard. Once, she remembered I hated fabric softener. Another time, I remembered she drank her coffee black because she said sugar made it taste like regret. She laughed after she said it, like she hadn't meant to go that far. I didn't ask questions I couldn't afford answers to. Loneliness, for me, looked like typing messages and saving them as drafts. Like pausing a song halfway through because the next part felt like it would say too much. Like noticing how quiet it got when she went back upstairs. Tonight, she was already there when I came down. Sitting. Phone in her hand. The glow lit her face in a way the basement never did. She looked up. Smiled. Then looked back down at her screen, smiling again, smaller this time. Private. Something in my chest shifted. Not pain. More like a hairline crack. The kind you only hear if the room is quiet enough. Her phone buzzed. Mine did too. A text. From her. If you're not busy after your wash, I made too much tea upstairs. I stared at the message while the machine clicked into place, water rushing in like a decision already made. Upstairs smelled like something herbal and slightly burnt. She apologized for it the way people apologize for weather, out of habit, not responsibility. The living room was dim except for a lamp near the couch, its shade tilted like it had given up arguing. "Sit wherever," she said, already moving toward the kitchen. I chose the chair instead of the couch. It felt like the correct distance. I held my mug with both hands even though it was too hot, watched steam lift and disappear before it could decide what shape it wanted. She sat across from me, knees angled away, one foot tucked under the chair. Not defensive. Just careful. "So," she said, then stopped. Smiled at herself. "You don't have to drink it if it's terrible." "It's good," I said. It was fine. The kind of tea you remember more for the company than the taste. There was a clock on the wall I hadn't noticed before. It ticked louder than the basement machines ever did. I wondered if she heard it all the time or only when someone else was there. She asked what I did during the day. I told her. She nodded, asked one question, then another, like she was arranging something fragile and didn't want to rush it. I realized she was really listening, not waiting for her turn, not filling space. "I don't talk much at work," I said, surprising myself. "I mean, I talk. Just about nothing." She considered that. "That can be tiring." I shrugged. "You get used to it." She looked at me then, properly. Not scanning, not polite. Just looking. I folded the edge of the napkin on the table without realizing I was doing it again. "I used to talk a lot," she said. "When I was married." Past tense. The word sat between us like it had earned its place. "And now?" "Now I choose my moments," she said. "It's quieter. Not worse. Just different." I imagined her choosing silence the way some people choose furniture, because it fit, because it was already there. I imagined her life before, then stopped myself. Some thoughts felt like trespassing. She laughed once, dry and quick, when I told her about the time I forgot my birthday because no one reminded me. "That sounds like freedom," she said, then paused. "Or neglect. Hard to tell sometimes." We drank our tea. The clock kept time. I helped her carry an empty box to the hallway, held the door while she maneuvered past me. For a second, her shoulder brushed my arm. It was nothing. It was everything. The kind of contact you could explain away if you had to, which made it worse. "You're young," she said suddenly, not looking at me. I waited. "You have time," she added. "That's a good thing." I wanted to tell her that time didn't always feel like it belonged to me. That some nights it felt borrowed. Instead, I nodded. She handed me a spare key on a ring too big for my pocket. "In case you lock yourself out," she said. Her fingers lingered, just a beat too long, as if she was deciding something and then decided not to. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me, and then chose to look away on purpose. At the door, she smiled again. Not at her phone this time. At me. Soft. Measured. "Good night," she said. I walked downstairs with the key warm in my hand, aware that some things had shifted, not forward, not back. Just closer than before. The next few Tuesdays didn't line up the way they had before. Not intentionally. Just enough to feel like a pattern breaking. Once, the basement light was off when I came down. Another time, her laundry was already done, basket gone, machine lids open like mouths that had said their piece and moved on. I told myself it was coincidence. I told myself a lot of things quietly, where they couldn't argue back. When she did appear again, it was earlier than usual. Late afternoon light slanting through the small window, dust visible, unbothered. "Oh," she said when she saw me. Not surprised. Just recalculating. Hey, I said. Too careful. She was wearing a cardigan I hadn't seen before. Buttoned wrong. Or maybe intentionally like that. She corrected one button while the washer filled, then let her hands fall to her sides like she didn't trust them. I've been meaning to ask, she said. Is the noise upstairs still okay? Yeah. I don't really notice it anymore. She nodded. That was the problem, I realized. I noticed everything else. We stood there longer than necessary. The hum of the machine. Pipes clicking. A neighbor's door slamming somewhere above us, distant but loud enough to make us both look up at the same time. She stepped back first. I should have, she started, then stopped. I shouldn't keep you. I'm not busy, I said too fast, then softened it. I mean, it's fine. Her phone buzzed. She didn't check it. Just turned it face down on the counter like it might misbehave if given the chance. You don't always have to be available, she said. Not unkind. Almost instructional. I watched her hands instead of her face. The way she pressed her thumb into her ring finger, over and over, like she was checking for something that wasn't there anymore. Neither do you, I said. That made her smile, but it didn't reach all the way. She picked up an empty detergent bottle, moved it 2 inches to the left. Pointless. Necessary. I forget, she said. Sometimes. We took the stairs up together. Not planned. Just happened. Halfway, she slowed, let me pass. I didn't. We stood there, bodies angled wrong, close enough to feel heat but not intention. You're very kind, she said. You know that, right? Kind. The word landed heavier than it should have. I don't think that's what this is, I said, then immediately wished I could take it back. Not because it was wrong. Because it was too close. Her breath caught. Just a fraction. She reached for the railing, then let her hand hover, unsure. This, she repeated. What do you think this is? I didn't answer. I couldn't without ruining it. Footsteps sounded above us. A door opening. Someone laughing, female, unfamiliar. The sound cut through the moment like a blade through fabric. She stepped back fully this time, space reasserting itself. That's my sister, she said quickly. She's visiting. Of course. Of course there was a world she belonged to that didn't include me. I should go, I said. She nodded. Then, as I turned, she reached out. Fingers caught my sleeve. Light. Apologetic. I'm glad you came upstairs that night, she said. She stopped. So did I. For a second, it felt like if either of us leaned forward, something irreversible would happen. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Mine followed the thought before I could stop it. Then she let go. Good night, she said, already turning away. I stood there longer than I should have, listening to her footsteps fade, carrying with me the exact shape of the space we didn't cross, and how close it had come to choosing us instead. It happened on a night that didn't feel important enough to remember later. That's what scared me most. I was coming home from work, keys already out, when I saw her at the end of the block. Not waiting, just standing, phone to her ear, coat open like she'd stepped outside without planning to. She laughed at something the person said. A real laugh. I slowed without meaning to. She noticed me then. Her smile faltered, recalibrated. She ended the call quickly, slid the phone into her pocket like it had burned her. Hey, she said. Hey. We stood there, both facing the house, neither of us moving toward it. The streetlight hummed overhead. Somewhere, a dog barked once and stopped. "You walking?" she asked. "Yeah." "Me too," she said, unnecessarily. Then, quieter, "if that's okay." We walked side by side. Not close. Close enough to feel the difference. Our steps didn't sync at first. She adjusted. I noticed. "That was my sister again," she said, unprompted. "She's concerned." I didn't ask about what. I could imagine enough. "She thinks I should start dating," she added, like it was a joke that hadn't learned how to land yet. "And do you?" I asked. She took a moment. Looked up at the dark windows of the houses we passed. "I think I already did something worse," she said. Then glanced at me. "Not worse. Just, messier." My chest tightened. Jealousy surprised me with how clean it felt. No anger. Just a small, sharp awareness that there were parts of her life I would never enter, no matter how many stairs I climbed. We reached the bench near the corner, the one people used when they needed to stop but didn't want to explain why. She sat. I stayed standing for a second, then joined her. "I need to say something," she said. Her hands were folded tight in her lap. Too tight. And I don't know how to say it without it sounding like something it isn't. I waited. The pause stretched. A car passed. Wind moved through the trees like it was looking for something. "I notice when you're not around," she said finally. "That shouldn't matter as much as it does." I swallowed. Said nothing. "And when you are," she continued, "I find myself editing. Choosing words. Thinking ahead." She laughed once, without humor. "I'm too old to be doing that again." "You don't seem old," I said. It came out softer than I intended. "That's part of the problem," she said, meeting my eyes. "You make me forget things I'm supposed to remember." I looked down at my hands. Open. Empty. "I don't want to be a mistake," I said. "Or a phase." Her breath caught. She reached out, stopped halfway, let her hand fall back. "You're not," she said. Then, quieter, "that's what scares me." We sat there, the space between us full and fragile. I could feel the moment tipping, like a glass at the edge of a table. One small nudge. She turned toward me. Close enough now to see the tiredness around her eyes. The wanting. The restraint. "If I asked you to come upstairs," she said, barely above a whisper, "what would you think that meant?" The question hung there, unanswered, waiting to decide who we would be next. After that night on the bench, she stopped coming downstairs. Not all at once. Just enough to feel intentional. The basement stayed empty on Tuesdays. The light stayed off. Her laundry basket never appeared by the door. I told myself she was busy. Family. Weather. 1,000 reasonable explanations that stacked neatly and still didn't hold. I adjusted my schedule without deciding to. Came home later. Left earlier. Took my clothes to the laundromat 3 blocks away where no one knew my name and no one remembered how I took my tea. I hated how quickly I noticed her absence. How the house felt taller without her footsteps above me. Quieter in a way that wasn't peaceful. Once, I heard voices upstairs. Laughter. Male this time. Low. Familiar in the way strangers sometimes are. I stood at the bottom of the stairs longer than I should have, keys in my hand, listening like it might explain something if I let it. It didn't. 3 days later, an envelope appeared under my door. Not slipped. Placed. My name written carefully, like it mattered how it looked. Inside was a note. Short. apologetic without saying sorry. I need to take some space for a bit. This house has a way of blurring things. I hope you understand. No signature. As if that made it easier. I read it twice. Then folded it once, then again, until it fit into my wallet like something I might need later. Or something I didn't trust myself to throw away. The twist came from a neighbor. Mrs. Calder from next door, who spoke in conclusions instead of sentences. "Your landlady's got a son," she said one afternoon, nodding toward the house. Early 20s. Lives with his father mostly, but he's been around more lately. I nodded like this was trivia. "A nice boy," she added. Close to her. The words rearranged themselves inside me. Son. Close. Around my age. The math landed hard and quiet. That night, I imagined scenarios I hadn't let myself imagine before. Her choosing restraint not because of me, but because of someone else who would never know my name and yet still matter more. Her weighing things I couldn't compete with and shouldn't. I drafted a message. Deleted it. Drafted another. I didn't mean to make things complicated. Too apologetic. I miss talking to you. Too honest. If you want to pretend none of this happened, I can. Too small. I left it unsent. Phone face down on the table like hers had been that afternoon. The silence felt borrowed. A week passed. Then another. I stopped looking for her car when I came home. Stopped listening for footsteps. Pretended the house was just a house again. One evening, I saw her through the upstairs window. Sitting alone this time. Lights off except for the lamp. She was holding her phone. Not smiling. Just staring at it like it might blink first. I stood on the sidewalk, grocery bag cutting into my hand, wondering if I should knock. Wondering if not knocking was the braver thing. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I walked past the door without touching it, leaving the porch light on behind me, illuminating a space where neither of us chose to sit. It ended up being the kitchen. Not planned. Nothing with us ever was. I was carrying groceries up the steps when the door opened from the inside. She stood there barefoot, a dish towel over her shoulder, hair loose like she'd stopped caring who might see it. For a second, neither of us moved. The space between us felt rehearsed, like we'd both practiced this moment separately and still gotten the timing wrong. "I was going to knock," I said. A lie made of good intentions. "I know," she said. Not accusing. Just tired. She stepped aside. I didn't ask permission. That felt like its own choice. The kitchen was warm. Something simmered on the stove. On the table sat a thermos, the same dented one she'd carried downstairs once, weeks ago, full of tea she'd meant to drink and never had. It felt deliberate, even if it wasn't. "I didn't handle this well," she said, turning off the burner. "I disappear when I don't trust myself." I set the groceries down. Too carefully. I thought I'd done something wrong. She shook her head. "No. You did something right. That was the problem." We stood on opposite sides of the counter. The clock ticked. Always the clock. "My son is 22, she said quietly. "When Mrs. Calder told you, I assume she didn't mention that part." I didn't answer. My silence was permission. "He doesn't live here," she continued. "But he could. Any day." And I realized I was measuring things against a future that wasn't fair to either of us. "I never wanted to be compared to him," I said. The words surprised me with how steady they sounded. "I know," she said. That's why I had to stop. She reached for the thermos, then didn't open it. Just rested her hand there like it anchored her. I notice when you don't come home, she said. The house changes. I don't like what that says about me. I leaned against the counter. Let myself feel the weight of it. I didn't want to be a secret, I said. Or a lesson. You weren't, she said immediately. Then softer, you were a reminder. We looked at each other. Really looked. The wanting was still there. So was the cost. I think, she said slowly, if we cross this line, it won't be something we can put back the way it was. I know, I said. And if we don't, it won't be nothing either. She smiled then. Small. Grateful. Sad. She came around the counter and stood close. Close enough to feel her warmth, to see the faint crease between her brows she got when she was deciding something difficult. I'm glad it was you, she said. Even if that's all it ever gets to be. I nodded. Reached out. My hand hovered at her wrist, waiting. She didn't pull away. Didn't lean in either. Okay, I said. She covered my hand with hers. Just for a second. Then let go. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't an ending. But it was real, and it cost us something, and we both felt it as she stepped back and the clock kept time like nothing had changed at all. Got it. Everything is still within the locked Kutako spine, and we're exactly where we need to be. We now have emotional peak reached without crossing truth spoken, but not acted on connection acknowledged, then contained cost clearly felt by both nothing has been resolved yet, only understood, which is correct. Where we are emotionally, for you to track, longing acknowledged guilt named power imbalance faced without dramatizing desire held, not indulged the story is now in its most dangerous quiet, the part where distance will either become peace or loss. What comes next, preview only, not writing yet, prompt 7 will be the ending. It must occur after time has passed. Use the delayed object, the item returned weeks later, end on a small physical action, as promised, leave residue, not reunion, no kisses. No confessions. No what if we tried. Just consequence. When you're ready, give prompt 7 and I'll end the story exactly where it should stop. Time passed the way it usually does when no one is watching it closely. The house learned new rhythms. I started leaving earlier in the mornings, before the pipes warmed enough to announce themselves. She started opening windows upstairs, even in the cold, like she wanted the place to breathe without her permission. We became polite again. Not distant, just careful in a way that felt earned. Like two people who had handled something fragile without breaking it, and now knew exactly where not to touch. I saw her sometimes at 8:47 a.m., mug in hand, standing by her car. Black coffee now. No thermos. She'd nod. I'd lift my hand. It never turned into a conversation, and somehow that felt right. Once, on a Saturday, I passed the bench where it had all tilted. Someone else was sitting there, a couple arguing quietly, knees angled away from each other, learning something they didn't have words for yet. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. The item came back to me in late spring. I found it on my kitchen counter when I came home from work, my old phone, the one I thought I'd lost months ago. The one that still held drafts I'd never sent, notes that didn't belong to the person I was anymore. Next to it was a folded piece of paper. You left this upstairs the night you came over. I wasn't ready to give it back then. I am now. No signature. She didn't need one. I stood there for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen, feeling the weight of all the versions of myself that had lived inside that phone. Then I powered it off and slid it into a drawer I didn't use often. Not thrown away. Just finished. That evening, I heard her on the stairs. Slower than before. Familiar. She knocked once. Soft. When I opened the door, we didn't smile right away. We looked at each other like people checking weather, seeing what had changed, what hadn't. You got it, she said. I did. A pause. Comfortable. New. Tea, she asked, then corrected herself with a small exhale. Or coffee. Black. I shook my head. I'm good. She nodded. Not disappointed. Just noting. I wanted you to have it back, she said. So we weren't carrying things that weren't ours anymore. That means more than you think, I said. She held my gaze. Longer than she used to. Shorter than she once might have. I'm glad you moved in, she said. Even if, this is how it ended up. Me too, I said. And meant it without reaching for more. We stood there, the door open between us, evening light settling into the hallway like it had decided to stay. She stepped back first. I let her. As she turned to leave, she touched the railing, same spot as before, then stopped, removed her hand, and walked away without looking back. I closed the door gently, feeling something settle instead of ache. Some loves don't ask to be lived out loud. They just ask to be carried correctly.